I'm Marcus Chen, 32 years old, and for most of my life, I've been what you might call invisible. Not in the superhero way where you can sneak past security or spy on conversations. No, I mean invisible in the way that matters most to the people who are supposed to see you first, my family. My older sister, Victoria, 38, has always been the sun around which our family orbit rotates. The successful one, the married one, the one with the perfect house in the suburbs, the Mercedes in the driveway, and 3 photogenic children who somehow always look camera-ready even at 6 a.m. soccer practice. I used to think it was just birth order dynamics, you know. First child gets the attention, second child learns independence. I read that in a psychology book once and clung to it like a life raft. But it wasn't that simple. It was never that simple. Growing up in San Francisco's Sunset District, our house was a modest 3-bedroom Edwardian that my parents bought in the early 80s for what would now seem like pocket change. Victoria got the big bedroom with the bay window overlooking the street. I got the converted sunroom that was freezing in winter and stifling in summer, with walls so thin I could hear every conversation in the kitchen. Which meant I heard a lot of things I probably wasn't supposed to. Victoria made the honor roll again, my mother would say, her voice bright with pride. Of course she did, my father would respond. That girl's going places. And then, almost as an afterthought, how's Marcus doing in school? Fine, I guess he's fine. Fine, that word followed me like a shadow. Not good enough to celebrate, not bad enough to worry about, just fine. I was 12 when I first understood what it meant to be the spare tire. It was Victoria's high school graduation, and our house was packed with relatives, friends, neighbors. My mother had spent weeks planning the party. Catered food, a 3-tier cake, a slideshow of Victoria's accomplishments that ran on a loop in the living room. I remember standing in the corner, watching everyone fawn over my sister, and my Aunt Chen, my father's sister, came up to me with a plate of spring rolls. "How are you doing, Marcus?" she asked, and for a moment I thought someone actually wanted to know. "I'm good," I said. "I got accepted into the youth orchestra program at school. I play violin." Her eyes glazed over almost immediately. "That's nice, dear. Oh, there's Victoria. I need to congratulate her again. Such an amazing girl." And she was gone. I stood there with my plate of spring rolls, feeling something crack inside my chest. Something small but significant, like the first fracture in a windshield that you know will eventually spiderweb across the whole thing. But I learned to adapt. Kids do. They're resilient that way, which is both a blessing and a curse because it means they'll survive things that should break them, but they'll also normalize things that should outrage them. I became the helper, the one who did chores without being asked, the one who never complained, never demanded attention, never caused problems. I thought if I could just be good enough, quiet enough, useful enough, eventually they'd notice me too. They didn't. High school was more of the same. Victoria had gone to Berkeley full ride studying economics. She was already interning at prestigious firms by her junior year. Everyone called her the golden child, and they weren't being ironic. I went to the local state school, San Francisco State, commuting from home because we couldn't afford for me to live on campus. Never mind that Victoria had gotten an apartment in Berkeley that my parents helped furnish and subsidize. When I asked about maybe getting a small dorm room, my father looked at me like I'd requested a yacht. "Victoria needed to be near her internships," he said. "You can take the bus, it's practical." Practical, another word that shadowed me. Victoria got dreams, I got practical. I majored in graphic design because I was good at it, and because it was one of the few things that felt like mine. My parents never came to my student exhibitions. They missed my graduation because it conflicted with my nephew's birthday party. When I mentioned this, my mother said, "Marcus, don't be selfish. He's only turning 5 once." I was only graduating college once too, but apparently that math didn't compute. After graduation, I scrambled. The job market was brutal, and I ended up working 3 part-time gigs just to make rent on a studio apartment in the Tenderloin. I was a barista in the mornings, did freelance design work in the afternoons, and worked retail on weekends. Victoria, meanwhile, had landed a 6-figure job at a tech startup that eventually went public. She bought her house at 28, had her first kid at 30. From the outside, her life looked like an Instagram feed come to life, all warm lighting and caption-perfect moments. And me, I was still struggling to make my student loan payments. Family dinners were torture. Every month, my mother would insist on these mandatory gatherings at their house. Everyone had to come. It was important for family cohesion, she said. These dinners followed a predictable pattern. We'd gather around the table. My mother would serve too much food, and then the interrogation would begin. Victoria, how's work going? Amazing, actually. We just secured another round of funding. I'm being promoted to VP of Strategy. Applause, literal applause. And the kids. Thriving, Emma's reading at a 5th grade level and she's only in 2nd grade. James just started piano and Sophie, well, Sophie is Sophie. She brightens every room she enters. More praise, more celebration. Then, almost reluctantly, my mother's eyes would drift to me. Marcus, are you still doing that computer thing? Graphic design, Mom. Yeah, I just landed a contract with. That's nice, Victoria, tell us more about this promotion. VP at your age, we're so proud. I'd sit there, fork halfway to my mouth, sentence unfinished, and just swallow it. The words, the disappointment, the rage, all of it went down with the overcooked green beans. My brother-in-law, Trevor, was a whole other layer of fun. He was a finance bro who thought his MBA from Stanford gave him the right to condescend to everyone. He especially loved giving me unsolicited advice. You know, Marcus, if you really applied yourself, you could probably make something of that design thing. Have you thought about getting a real job, something stable? I could probably get you an interview in our mailroom. The mailroom, this man made $300K a year and thought offering me a mailroom position was generous. I'm good, Trevor, thanks though. Just trying to help. Family looks out for family, right? Right, family. The irony was suffocating. The years blurred together in a haze of mediocrity and invisibility. I built my design business slowly, gaining clients through word of mouth and late nights. I wasn't getting rich, but I was surviving, which felt like its own small victory. I dated occasionally, but nothing serious. How could I bring someone home to meet a family that barely acknowledged my existence? How could I explain that family dinners felt like performance reviews? I was perpetually failing. I had friends, good ones, who saw me, who valued me, but there's something about family rejection that cuts deeper than any other kind. It's cellular. It's the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally choosing not to, and then acting like you're unreasonable for being hurt by it. I was 29 when I finally snapped during a family dinner. It was Christmas Eve, and we were all gathered at my parents' house. Victoria's family had arrived in matching sweaters, custom-made, with everyone's names embroidered on them. Everyone except me. Oh, we didn't know you were coming, Victoria said when I pointed this out. Mom literally texted me last week, confirming I'd be here. Well, it must have slipped my mind. It's not a big deal, Marcus. Don't be so sensitive. Not a big deal, right? We sat down to dinner, and my father stood to make a toast. I want to thank everyone for being here, he said, glass raised, especially Victoria and her beautiful family. Watching her succeed, watching her build this life has been the greatest joy of my life. She's everything we hoped for and more. He sat down. That was it. No mention of me, not even a and Marcus too, tacked on at the end. I lasted about 20 more minutes before I excused myself and left. No one tried to stop me. I don't think anyone even noticed. I spent Christmas Day alone in my apartment, eating Chinese takeout and wondering what was wrong with me. Why wasn't I enough? What cosmic lottery had I lost that made me so fundamentally unlovable to the people who made me? But life continued because it always does. I kept working, kept building, kept existing in the margins of my own family. And then 3 years later, everything changed. Uncle Raymond died. I hadn't thought about Uncle Raymond in years, honestly. He was my mother's older brother, a man who'd never married, never had kids, and lived a quiet life in Monterey working as an accountant. He'd retired early, lived modestly, and from what I understood, mostly kept to himself. He'd come to a few family gatherings over the years, always sitting slightly apart, watching with these sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to take in everything. I remembered him being kind to me in a distant sort of way. He'd ask about school, about my interests, actually listen to my answers. But we weren't close. I'd maybe seen him a dozen times in my entire life. So when I got the call from a lawyer's office asking me to come in for the reading of Raymond Chen's will, I was confused. I think you have the wrong person, I told the secretary. I'm just his nephew. You probably want my mother or my sister. No, Mr. Chen, the will specifically names you. Can you come in Tuesday at 2 p.m.? I agreed, mostly out of curiosity. The law office was in downtown Monterey, a sleek modern building with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. I took the day off work and drove down, still not understanding why I was there. The lawyer, a woman named Patricia Morneau, was probably in her 60s, with steel gray hair and the kind of efficient demeanor that suggested she didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Mr. Chen, thank you for coming. I'm sure you're wondering why you're here." The thought crossed my mind. She smiled slightly. "Your uncle was a very private man, but also a very observant one. He came to me 5 years ago to draw up his will, and he was very specific about his wishes." She slid a folder across the desk. "Your Uncle Raymond had no spouse, no children. His estate is valued at approximately $890,000. This includes his home, which is fully paid off and currently valued at $625,000, his savings and investment accounts totaling $240,000, and various personal property valued at around $25,000. I stared at her, not quite processing the numbers. "I'm sorry, what?" "Your uncle was very frugal and very smart with his money. He lived well below his means for most of his life and invested wisely." "Okay, but why are you telling me this?" Patricia looked at me over her glasses. "Because he left it all to you, Mr. Chen. The house, the money, everything. You're his sole beneficiary." The room tilted slightly. "What about my mother, or Victoria?" "Your mother receives some personal items, photographs, and family heirlooms. Your sister isn't mentioned in the will at all, but the bulk of the estate goes to you." I laughed. It wasn't funny, but I laughed anyway because what else do you do when your entire understanding of your place in the world suddenly shifts? "Why?" Patricia pulled out a letter, sealed in an envelope with my name on it in shaky handwriting. "He left this for you. Perhaps it will explain." My hands shook as I opened it. "Dear Marcus, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I hope I lived long enough to see you succeed, but if not, know that I always believed you would. I'm leaving you everything because you're the only one in this family who understands what it means to be overlooked. I've watched over the years as they diminished you, ignored you, treated you like an afterthought. I saw it because I lived it too. I was the overlooked son in my generation. Your grandfather favored your mother, gave her everything, while I worked for every scrap of approval I never quite received. I thought it would be different for your generation, but watching them do the same thing to you that was done to me, I couldn't let it continue without doing something. This money isn't just an inheritance. It's proof that someone saw you, someone valued you, someone thought you were worth investing in, even if they did it quietly. Use it wisely, build the life they said you couldn't have, and don't let them guilt you into believing you don't deserve it. You deserve this and more. You were always my favorite, Marcus. You just didn't know it. With love, Uncle Raymond." I read the letter 3 times, sitting in Patricia's office while she discreetly worked on other files, giving me space to process. Someone had seen me. All those years of feeling invisible, and someone had been watching. Someone had cared. I cried right there in that lawyer's office. I put my head in my hands and cried like I hadn't cried since I was a child. Patricia handed me a box of tissues without comment. When I finally pulled myself together, she went over the logistics. The house needed to be dealt with. Either I could sell it or keep it. The accounts would be transferred to my name within a few weeks. There were some taxes to handle, some paperwork to sign, but it was straightforward. "One more thing," Patricia said as I was gathering my things to leave. "Your uncle instructed me to tell you that if anyone contests this will, I'm to fight it aggressively. He set aside $50,000 specifically for legal fees if needed. He wanted to make sure his wishes were honored." "Did he think someone would contest it?" She gave me a knowing look. "He knew your family, Mr. Chen. He prepared accordingly." I drove back to San Francisco in a daze, Uncle Raymond's letter on the passenger seat beside me. I kept glancing at it at stoplights, making sure it was real, that I hadn't imagined the whole thing. $890,000. It was more money than I'd ever imagined having. It was freedom. It was possibility. It was validation wrapped in a bank account and a property deed. It was also, I knew even then, going to be a problem. I didn't tell anyone immediately. I went home to my tiny studio apartment, sat on my second-hand couch and just existed in the knowledge for a while, let it sink in, let myself feel it. For the first time in my life, I had something that was unequivocally mine, something no one could minimize or ignore or forget about. I should have savored that feeling longer. I should have known the peace wouldn't last. 3 days after the will reading, my mother called. "Marcus, we need to talk about Raymond's will." My stomach dropped. "How did you find out?" Patricia Morno called me as a courtesy to inform me of the contents. "Marcus, we need to discuss this, as a family." "There's nothing to discuss, Mom. Uncle Raymond left me his estate. It's done." "Don't be ridiculous. That money should be distributed properly, among the whole family." He was very clear about what he wanted. He was old, Marcus. He wasn't thinking clearly. Obviously, he didn't understand that Victoria has children to support, a mortgage, expenses. You're single. You don't need all that money. And there it was. Less than 72 hours after finding out I'd inherited anything, and already they were trying to take it away. "I'm not giving Victoria my inheritance, Mom. No one's asking you to give it all to her, but sharing would be the right thing to do, the family thing to do." Uncle Raymond was family. He made his choice. He barely knew any of us. Exactly, he barely knew any of us, and he still chose me. What does that tell you? Silence on the other end. "Then your sister is very upset. Victoria doesn't even know Uncle Raymond died, does she? You just told her about the money." More silence. "We'll discuss this at Sunday dinner," my mother said finally. "Don't make any rash decisions until then." She hung up. I stared at my phone, feeling that old familiar dread settling into my bones. The dread of family dinners, of being outnumbered, of being made to feel selfish for wanting something that was mine. But something was different this time. I had Uncle Raymond's letter. I had his words. I had proof that I wasn't crazy, that the years of neglect had been real, that someone else had seen it too. And I had $890,000 that said I didn't have to play by their rules anymore. Sunday dinner came too quickly and not quickly enough. I spent the days leading up to it going over scenarios in my head, preparing arguments, trying to steel myself for the onslaught. I almost didn't go. I sat in my car outside my parents' house for 10 minutes, debating whether to just drive away, block their numbers, disappear into my new life. But I went in, some part of me still hoping that maybe, just maybe, they'd surprise me. They didn't. The intervention started before I even sat down. Victoria was there with Trevor, both of them looking at me with expressions of concerned disappointment. My parents sat at the head of the table, a united front of parental authority. "Marcus, sit down," my father said. "We need to talk about this situation." "There's no situation, Dad. Uncle Raymond left me his estate. It's legal and final." "We're not disputing the legality," Trevor interjected, in that condescending tone he always used. "We're talking about what's morally right." "Morally right," I repeated. "That's interesting coming from you, Trevor." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, continue." Victoria leaned forward and I could see she'd been crying. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her voice shaky. "Marcus, I don't understand why you're being so selfish about this. We're family, family shares." "When have we ever shared?" I asked. "When have any of you ever shared anything with me?" "Don't be dramatic," my mother said. "We've given you everything." "Really? Name one thing you've given me that you didn't give Victoria first and better." Silence. "That's what I thought." My father cleared his throat. "This isn't about the past, Marcus. This is about doing the right thing now. Victoria has expenses. Victoria makes more in a year than I've made in the last 5 combined. She has children," my mother said, voice rising. 3 children to feed, clothe, educate. You have no one depending on you. So because I'm single, I don't deserve to have anything." "That's not what we're saying," Victoria said, tears now flowing freely. "But you have to understand, Marcus, this money would change our lives. We could pay off the mortgage, set up college funds for the kids, maybe finally take that trip to Europe we've been planning. For you, it's just sitting in a bank account." I stared at my sister, this woman I'd spent my whole life watching succeed, watching be celebrated, watching take and take and take while I got scraps. And now she wanted this too. "Victoria, you make $200,000 a year. Trevor makes $300,000. You live in a $1 million house. You drive luxury cars. Your kids go to private school. And you're sitting here crying, telling me you need my inheritance more than I do because, what, because you want a trip to Europe. It's not about. What exactly do you think I live on, Victoria? Do you even know? Have you ever once asked? She blinked. You do your design thing. I make $40,000 a year. On a good year, I live in a 400 square foot studio in the Tenderloin. I haven't had health insurance in 2 years. I eat ramen more nights than I don't. And you want me to give you my inheritance so you can go to fucking Paris? Marcus, my mother gasped. Language. No, we're doing this now. I'm tired of being quiet. I'm tired of being invisible. I'm tired of watching all of you live these beautiful lives while treating me like I'm an inconvenience you have to tolerate. We don't treat you like that, my father said. Dad, you forgot my birthday 3 years in a row. 3 years, but you've never missed one of Victoria's kids' birthday parties. That's different. It's not different, it's exactly the same. I'm your son and you treat me like I'm nothing. The room fell silent. Victoria was crying harder now. My mother looked shocked. My father's face had gone red. Trevor, of course, couldn't leave well enough alone. Look, Marcus, I get that you're emotional right now, but let's be practical. That money is wasted on you. You don't have investments. You don't have a financial plan. You'll probably just blow it on stupid stuff. At least if Victoria had it, it would be used responsibly. I stood up. I'm leaving. Marcus, sit down, my father commanded. We're not done talking. Actually, we are. Uncle Raymond left me that money because he knew exactly who you all are. He saw how you treated me. He saw how you favored Victoria. He saw all of it, and he decided I deserved something that was just mine, and I'm keeping it. Marcus, please, Victoria said, standing up. Think about the kids. Think about your nieces and nephew. Don't you want them to have opportunities? They have opportunities. They have every opportunity in the world. What they don't need is my inheritance. You're making a mistake, my mother said coldly. Family is everything, Marcus. Money comes and goes, but family is forever. I actually laughed. Family is forever. Where was family when I graduated college and none of you showed up? Where was family when I was working 3 jobs just to keep a roof over my head and none of you offered to help? Where was family every time I got pushed to the side, forgotten, erased? We never erased you, my mother said. You didn't have to actively erase me, Mom. You just had to never see me in the first place. I walked to the door. If you leave now, my father said, voice hard, don't bother coming back. I turned to look at him, this man who'd never fought for me, never defended me, never chosen me. Okay, I said simply. And I left. I sat in my car for a long time after that, shaking with adrenaline and rage and something that felt dangerously close to relief. I'd finally said it, finally let them know that I'd noticed, that I'd been keeping score, that their neglect had consequences. I drove home, poured myself a whiskey I couldn't really afford, and sat in the dark. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. Text from my mother, you're being incredibly selfish. Think about what you're throwing away. From Victoria, I can't believe you'd choose money over family. The kids are asking why Uncle Marcus hates them. From Trevor, this is what happens when unsuccessful people get money they didn't earn. They lose perspective. That last one made me actually angry. Didn't earn, like Victoria had earned being born first, like she'd earned being the favorite. I blocked Trevor's number. The texts continued for days, increasingly desperate, increasingly angry. My father, your mother is heartbroken. Is this what you wanted? My mother, we raised you better than this. Victoria, I told the kids you're sick. It's easier than explaining that their uncle is a selfish stranger. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I called Patricia Morneau. I need to secure the estate, I told her. Make sure it's completely locked down, and I want to sell the house. Are you sure? It's a beautiful property. I'm sure. I want liquid assets. I want everything in accounts they can't touch, can't claim, can't contest. Understood, I'll start the paperwork. The house sold faster than expected. Monterey's real estate market was hot, and Uncle Raymond's place was well-maintained and in a good neighborhood. We got $640,000 for it, even more than the initial estimate. Combined with the other accounts, I was suddenly sitting on just over $900,000. $900,000. I kept saying the number to myself, trying to make it feel real. I paid off my student loans first, $32,000 gone in one payment. The relief was almost physical. Then I paid off my credit card debt, another $8,000. I set up a meeting with a financial advisor, someone Patricia recommended. His name was James Qley, and he was patient in explaining things in ways I could understand. The key, he said, is not to make any huge decisions right away. You want this money to work for you, not disappear in a few years of lifestyle inflation. We set up a diversified portfolio, some stocks, some bonds, some real estate investment trusts. He recommended keeping $50,000 in a high-yield savings account as an emergency fund. The rest got invested in a way that would generate passive income while still growing over time. If you're smart about this, James said, you'll never have to worry about money again. Not rich, but comfortable, secure. Secure, I liked that word. I gave myself a budget for improvements to my life, not extravagant, just better. I moved out of the Tenderloin studio into a one-bedroom apartment in the inner Sunset. It had hardwood floors, a real kitchen, and windows that actually let in light. The rent was higher, but after years of living in a glorified closet, it felt like a mansion. I bought a new bed, a real bed, with a frame and a headboard, and a mattress that didn't have springs poking through. I bought clothes that fit properly, got a decent haircut, started eating food that didn't come from a microwave. I kept working, my design business was actually growing, and I liked the work, but I didn't have to take every project anymore. I could be selective. I could charge what I was worth. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't constantly anxious about money. It was surreal. The family silence lasted about 6 weeks, then Victoria showed up at my apartment. I'd just gotten home from a client meeting when I found her sitting on the steps outside my building. Victoria, what are you doing here? We need to talk, Marcus. I don't think we do. Please just give me 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I let her in. She looked around the apartment, taking in the new furniture, the art on the walls, the general sense that someone who wasn't drowning lived here. This is nice, she said. Thanks. Mom told me you moved. How did you get my address? I have my ways, she tried to smile, it didn't reach her eyes. Look, I came to apologize. I crossed my arms, okay. I'm sorry for how we acted, about the inheritance, it wasn't fair to you. I waited, she was going somewhere with this. But I also want you to understand where we were coming from. Things have been hard, Marcus. Trevor's company is restructuring, and there's a chance he might be let go. Emma needs braces, James's tutoring is expensive, and Sophie. We think she might need some special services at school. Nothing serious, just some extra support. Victoria. And I know we make good money, but it goes so fast with 3 kids. The house, the cars, the school tuition, everything. We're not as financially secure as you think. You want me to give you money? She had the grace to look embarrassed. Not give, loan, just $100,000 maybe. We'll pay you back with interest. It would just help us get through this rough patch. I stared at my sister, this woman who did everything handed to her our entire lives, who'd never had to struggle for anything, who'd watched me struggle and never once offered to help, and now she wanted 6 figures from me. No, Marcus. No, Victoria, I'm not loaning you money. I'm not giving you money. This inheritance is mine. I said I was sorry. You said the words, but you're not sorry. You're here trying to manipulate me into giving you what you want, again. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Victoria. It's never been fair. You've had every advantage, every opportunity, every ounce of support and love and encouragement. I've had nothing. And the one time I get something that's mine, you can't even let me have it. You have to show up and ask for a piece of it. We're family. No, you're my sister by biology, but you're not my family. Family shows up. Family cares. Family sees you. You've never seen me, Victoria. None of you have. She started crying. I do see you. I do care. I'm scared, okay? I'm scared that Trevor will lose his job and will lose everything. I'm scared I can't give my kids the life they deserve. I'm scared all the time, and I thought maybe you could help because that's what family does. For a moment, I almost caved, almost felt sorry for her, almost let the old programming kick in, be helpful, be useful, be the one who sacrifices. But then I remembered Uncle Raymond's letter. Don't let them guilt you into believing you don't deserve it. I'm sorry you're scared, I said, more gently than I felt. But that's not my problem to solve. You have resources. You have options. Figure it out like I've had to figure things out my entire life. So that's it. You're just going to abandon us. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just not rescuing you from problems you can solve yourself. She stood up, grabbing her purse. You've changed. Yeah, I have. Not in a good way. That's your opinion. She left without another word, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I sat down on my new couch and put my head in my hands, feeling the old guilt trying to creep back in. The voice that said I was being selfish, that family was supposed to help each other, that I should be grateful anyone in my family even acknowledged me, so who was I to say no when they needed something? I texted James, my financial advisor. Is it normal to feel guilty about keeping money that's legally mine? He responded almost immediately, totally normal, especially with family. But remember, your uncle wanted you to have it. Honor his wishes by using it to build your life. Right, my life. Not Victoria's, not my parents', mine. I took a deep breath and opened my laptop. I started looking at business courses, marketing classes, design workshops, things that would help me grow my client base, charge more, build something sustainable. I also started looking at therapists. Because Uncle Raymond's money could give me financial security, but it couldn't fix the 32 years of damage that came from being invisible to the people who were supposed to love me most. If I was going to really change, I needed help. I found Dr. Sarah Kim through a referral service. She specialized in family dynamics and trauma, which felt painfully relevant. Our first session was awkward. I didn't know how to explain the problem without sounding whiny. I don't know if this is even real trauma, I said, sitting in her office with its calming blue walls and abstract art. It's not like they hit me or anything. Neglect is trauma, Dr. Kim said simply, being chronically unseen, unheard, undervalued, that leaves scars just like any other kind of abuse. Something in my chest loosened. They're mad at me now because I won't share my inheritance. Tell me about that. So I told her everything. The years of being second best, the forgotten birthdays, the ignored achievements, Victoria's golden child status, the intervention at dinner, Uncle Raymond's letter, Victoria showing up at my apartment. Dr. Kim listened without judgment, occasionally taking notes. When I finished, she said, "It sounds like you've spent your life trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it to you, not because you weren't worthy, but because they'd already decided who the recipient of their love would be, and it wasn't you." I felt tears prick my eyes. Is that a thing? Absolutely, some families have a very rigid hierarchy. The golden child can do no wrong, the scapegoat can do no right, and the invisible child, they're just there, taking up space but not really mattering. I was the invisible child. You were, but you don't have to stay in that role. Over the following months, therapy became my anchor. Dr. Kim helped me understand that my family's treatment of me wasn't about my worth as a person. It was about their dysfunction, their inability to see beyond their established patterns. She also helped me understand that I didn't owe them anything. But their family, I said during one session, isn't there supposed to be some obligation? There can be, Dr. Kim said, but obligations are supposed to be reciprocal. What have they done to obligate themselves to you? I couldn't answer that. Meanwhile, the harassment from my family continued in waves. My mother would go silent for a few weeks, then suddenly I'd get a barrage of texts about how I was tearing the family apart. How could I be so cruel? Didn't I care about anyone but myself? My father sent exactly one email, formal and cold, informing me that I was no longer welcome at family events, as if I'd been clamoring to attend. Victoria oscillated between angry and manipulative. One day I'd get texts calling me selfish and heartless. The next day, photos of the kids with captions like, "The kids miss their uncle. They don't understand why he doesn't visit anymore." I blocked and unblocked her number at least a dozen times. Trevor, remarkably, created a Facebook post about me, without using my name, of course, but everyone knew who he meant. It's sad when people let money change them, when they forget where they came from and who helped them get there. Family is supposed to mean something, but I guess not everyone was raised with values. I screenshot it and showed Dr. Kim. She raised her eyebrows. That's bold. Is it weird that I'm not even mad, just tired? Not weird at all. Anger requires energy. Sometimes exhaustion is what comes after. I deactivated my Facebook account after that. I didn't need to see their narrative. I was building my own. One afternoon, about 8 months after Uncle Raymond's death, I was working at a coffee shop when my phone rang. Unknown number, Monterey area code. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello. Marcus Chen. Speaking. This is Detective Ramirez with the Monterey Police Department. I'm calling about a complaint we received regarding your Uncle Raymond Chen's estate. My blood ran cold. A complaint. Yes, sir, your sister Victoria Chen filed a report claiming there were irregularities with your uncle's will, possible elder abuse or undue influence. We're required to investigate such claims. Are you serious right now? I understand this is frustrating, sir, but I need to ask you a few questions. When was the last time you saw your uncle before his passing? I took a breath, trying to stay calm. I don't know exactly, maybe 5 years ago, at a family gathering. And you had no contact with him during that time? No, we weren't close. But he left you his entire estate. Yes. Can you help me understand why he would do that if you weren't close? I pulled out my phone, found the photo of Uncle Raymond's letter I'd saved there. He left me a letter explaining his reasoning. I can forward it to you. That would be helpful. I sent the letter, along with contact information for Patricia Morneau. Mr. Chen, I'll be honest with you. These claims rarely go anywhere, especially when the deceased left clear documentation. But I have to follow protocol. If everything checks out, you won't hear from us again. And if my sister files more complaints? There's not much we can do if someone keeps filing baseless reports, but it does go on record. After we hung up, I sat there shaking with rage. She'd called the police, tried to accuse me of elder abuse, of manipulating an old man I barely knew. I called Patricia. I already spoke with them, she said when I explained. I provided all the documentation showing that Raymond was of sound mind when he made the will, that you had no contact with him, that he initiated everything himself. They seemed satisfied. She's trying to destroy me. She's desperate. People do terrible things when they're desperate. What do I do? You do nothing. Let me handle the legal aspects. You focus on living your life. Living my life, right. I texted Dr. Kim for an emergency session. This is escalating, I told her when we met the next day. She's not stopping. They're not stopping. What if they never stop? Then you keep your boundaries. You don't engage. You don't defend. You just exist outside their drama. Is that even possible? It's hard, but yes. You have to decide that their opinion of you doesn't define you, that their narrative doesn't have to be your reality. I went home and did something I'd been avoiding. I wrote them a letter. Not to send. Dr. Kim and I had discussed that engaging directly would only feed the cycle, but for me, to purge it all out. Dear family, I'm writing this letter that you'll never read to tell you things you'll never hear. I spent 32 years trying to earn your love, trying to be good enough, quiet enough, helpful enough to matter to you. I worked myself to exhaustion trying to prove I deserved a fraction of the attention you gave Victoria without her even asking. And it was never enough. It was never going to be enough. Uncle Raymond's inheritance didn't change me. It revealed me. It showed you that I could exist outside your hierarchy, outside your control. And that terrified you because you need me to be small. You need me to stay in the box you've put me in, the invisible child, the spare tire, the one who gives and never takes. But I'm done being small for you. I'm keeping this money not because I don't love you, but because I finally love myself more than I need your approval. You taught me that family is everything, but you never taught me that I was family too. Goodbye. I printed it out, put it in an envelope, and stored it in a box under my bed. Maybe someday I'd send it. Maybe I'd burn it. For now, it was enough to have written it. The police investigation went nowhere, as predicted. Victoria's claims were baseless, and the documentation was airtight. But she wasn't done. 3 months later, I got served with papers. Victoria was suing me. The lawsuit was a mess of legal language, but the gist was that she was claiming Uncle Raymond had made verbal promises to her about splitting his estate among all the Nibblings equally, that his written will was either a result of undue influence or diminished capacity. It was bullshit, and we all knew it. But it was also expensive bullshit. I met with Patricia and a litigation attorney she recommended, Marcus Wu. Yes, we had the same first name, which felt like either a good omen or a cosmic joke. This is a nuisance suit, Marcus Wu said, reviewing the paperwork. She has no evidence because there is no evidence, but she can tie you up in court for months, cost you legal fees, make your life miserable. So what do I do? We file a motion to dismiss based on the airtight documentation we have. If that doesn't work, we go to discovery, and I guarantee she'll drop it once she realizes she has to provide evidence that doesn't exist. And how much will this cost me? He gave me a number that made me wince. However, he continued, if we can prove this suit is frivolous, we can potentially recover costs from her. It's risky, but it's an option. I thought about Uncle Raymond's letter, about the $50,000 he'd set aside specifically for legal fees. He'd known this would happen, he'd prepared for it. Fight it, I said, I want to fight it. The lawsuit dragged on for 7 months, 7 months of depositions, document requests, and legal maneuvering. Victoria had to explain under oath why she believed Uncle Raymond had promised her anything. She couldn't. She rambled about how it was just understood that family money would be shared, that it was implied that the Nibblings would all benefit equally. When asked if Uncle Raymond had ever specifically said this to her, she admitted he hadn't. When asked how many times she'd visited Uncle Raymond in the last 10 years, she couldn't remember a single specific instance. When asked if she'd ever called him, sent him a card, acknowledged his existence in any meaningful way, she got defensive. I was busy raising 3 kids, she said, according to the deposition transcript. I didn't have time for constant social calls. But when they asked me the same questions, I was honest. No, I didn't visit him. No, I didn't call him. We weren't close. I have no idea why he left me everything, but he did, and I'm honoring his wishes. The honesty worked in my favor. The judge dismissed the case with prejudice, meaning Victoria couldn't refile, and because the suit was deemed frivolous, she was ordered to pay my legal fees. All $38,000 of them. Patricia called me with the news. You won, completely. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. Does this mean she'll stop now? Legally, she has to, whether she stops in other ways that I can't predict. I thanked her and hung up. That night, I treated myself to a nice dinner, alone, at a good restaurant, with wine I didn't have to check the price on. I raised a glass to the empty chair across from me. Thank you, Uncle Raymond, I whispered, for seeing me. But if I thought the lawsuit would be the end of it, I was wrong. Because my family had one more card to play, and it was the cruelest one yet. Part 2, the smear campaign. The thing about families like mine is that when they can't control you legally, they try to control you socially. If they can't take your money, they'll try to take your reputation. It started subtly. I first noticed it when my cousin Eric, who I'd always gotten along with reasonably well, stopped responding to my texts. We'd never been super close, but we'd grab a beer occasionally, talk about sports, normal cousin stuff. When he ghosted me for 2 weeks, I finally called him. Eric, hey, did I do something to piss you off? There was a long pause. Marcus, look, I don't want to get in the middle of this. The middle of what? Whatever's going on with you and Victoria, and your parents, I'm trying to stay neutral. There's nothing to stay neutral about. Victoria sued me for an inheritance she had no legal right to. She lost. Yeah, but that's not what she told us. My stomach dropped. What did she tell you? She said you manipulated Uncle Raymond when he was sick and dying, that you cut the whole family out, that you're refusing to help her even though she's struggling financially, and you're sitting on almost $1 million. Eric, none of that is true. Uncle Raymond and I barely spoke. The will was his choice. I didn't even know about it until after he died. I don't know what to believe, man. It's family drama, and I'm staying out of it. He hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, realizing what was happening. They were rewriting the story, making me the villain. I called my Aunt Lisa, my father's sister, who I'd always liked. She'd been kind to me growing up in her own scattered way. Aunt Lisa, have you heard anything about me from Victoria or my parents? She sighed, Marcus, I love you, but I'm not getting involved in this. I'm not asking you to get involved. I'm asking what they've been saying about me. Your mother she's very hurt, Marcus. She says you've cut them all off, that you won't even talk to them, that you've become cold and money-obsessed. Did she mention that they demanded I split my inheritance with Victoria, that they showed up at my apartment, called me selfish, tried to guilt me into giving away money that legally belongs to me? There are always two sides, Aunt Lisa said diplomatically. Right, and you're choosing to believe their side without even asking for mine. Marcus, it's fine, I get it, thanks for your time. I hung up. Over the next few weeks, the extent of the smear campaign became clear. My mother had apparently told everyone in their church community that I'd abandoned the family over money, that I'd refused to help my sister in her time of need, that I'd become materialistic and selfish. Victoria was posting vague but obvious Facebook statuses about betrayal and greed and how some people change when they get money. My father had told his golf buddies that he'd raised me better than this, but that some kids just don't appreciate their family. Even Trevor was getting in on it, posting LinkedIn updates about integrity and family values that were clearly directed at me. It was coordinated, strategic, and devastatingly effective. Friends I'd known for years started looking at me differently. Some stopped calling. Others would ask carefully worded questions, fishing for my side of the story, but clearly having already heard theirs. The worst was when my friend Jason, someone I'd known since college, took me out for coffee and said, "Hey man, I heard about the family stuff. Are you doing okay?" Depends on what you heard. Just that there's some dispute about an inheritance. Your family seems pretty upset. Did they tell you they tried to make me give half of it to Victoria, that they called me selfish for wanting to keep money my uncle specifically left to me? Jason shifted uncomfortably. Look, I'm sure there's more to the story than I'm hearing, but from the outside it does kind of look like. I mean, Victoria has kids, right? And you're single. I'm not saying you're wrong to keep it, but I can see why they might think you'd share. I stared at him. You think I should give her my inheritance? I think family is complicated, and money makes it worse. Maybe there's a middle ground. I left without finishing my coffee. The isolation was crushing, not because I needed their validation. I was working on that in therapy, but because it made me realize how deeply they'd infiltrated every aspect of my life. I couldn't go to family events, obviously, but I also couldn't go to mutual friends' parties without awkward questions. I couldn't attend my cousin's wedding because I wasn't invited. I couldn't even go to my parents' church for Christmas Eve service, something I'd done every year since childhood, because I knew I'd be stared at and whispered about. They'd effectively excommunicated me. But they'd made one critical mistake. They assumed I'd care enough to come back. Dr. Kim helped me understand what was happening. This is a classic tactic, she said during one of our sessions. When someone sets a boundary that threatens the family system, the family often escalates. They use social pressure, shame, isolation, anything to force the person back into their assigned role. So what do? You hold the boundary. You don't defend yourself to people who have already made up their minds. You focus on building a life with people who see you clearly. That sounds lonely. It can be, but it's lonelier to be surrounded by people who don't really see you at all. She was right, but it still hurt. I threw myself into my work. My design business was thriving. The financial stability from the inheritance meant I could take on more interesting projects, invest in better software, attend conferences and workshops to improve my skills. I rebranded my business, updated my portfolio, started charging what I was actually worth, and clients paid it because the work was good. I also started saying yes to things I'd always said no to because of money: a photography class, a weekend trip to Portland, a nice bike for riding around the city. I started going to a climbing gym and met people who knew nothing about my family drama and didn't care about my financial situation. They just liked climbing with me. I adopted a cat from the shelter, a 3-year-old tabby named Machi who'd been overlooked because she wasn't a kitten. We were a good match. Slowly, carefully, I built a life that was mine. But the family wasn't done with me yet. 6 months after the lawsuit ended, I got a call from a journalist. "Hi, is this Marcus Chen?" "Yes." "My name is Amanda Price. I'm a reporter with the San Francisco Chronicle. I'm working on a story about family inheritance disputes, and I was told you might be a good person to talk to." My heart started racing. "Who told you that?" "I received a tip from a source who preferred to remain anonymous. They said you were involved in a contentious inheritance situation where you refused to share with family members who needed it more." Jesus Christ. "I want to be fair and get your side of the story. Would you be willing to talk to me?" "No, absolutely not. This is a private family matter." "I understand, but if you don't comment, I'll have to go with the information I have." "The information fed to you by my family, you mean?" "I have to verify everything independently, but yes, I've spoken to your sister and your mother." "Of course you have." I hung up and immediately called Patricia. "They're trying to take this public," I said, explaining about the reporter. "Can they do that?" "Technically, there's nothing illegal about talking to the press, but if they make defamatory statements, you could sue for libel." "I don't want to sue anyone else. I just want them to leave me alone." "Then don't engage, don't comment. Let them publish whatever they're going to publish and it'll blow over. These stories always do." The article came out 2 weeks later. The headline, "When Inheritance Tears Families Apart, One Bay Area Family's Story." It was everything I feared. Victoria was quoted extensively, crying about how I'd cut off the whole family over money, how her children asked why Uncle Marcus didn't love them anymore, how she'd only wanted to share in the family legacy and had been shut out. My mother talked about how she'd never raised Marcus to be so selfish and how money changes people. They mentioned that Victoria had sued me, but framed it as a desperate attempt to right a wrong rather than a baseless cash grab. And because I hadn't commented, the article noted that I had declined to speak with the Chronicle, perhaps unwilling to defend his position. The comments section was brutal. "Imagine being so greedy you'd let your nieces and nephews suffer. This guy is what's wrong with America, no sense of family or community. I hope karma gets him." I read every comment, each one a little knife to the gut. But there were also comments that surprised me. "We don't know the whole story. Families are complicated." Maybe he had good reasons. Not all family relationships are healthy. "It's his inheritance. He doesn't owe anyone anything." Those comments, the ones from strangers who were willing to consider that maybe I wasn't a monster, those kept me sane. The fallout was immediate. 2 of my clients emailed saying they were going in a different creative direction and canceling their contracts. I knew they'd seen the article. My landlord knocked on my door to check in and make sure there were no problems with the family situation affecting your ability to pay rent. People recognized me at the grocery store and stared. It was awful, but it was also clarifying. Because I realized that the people who believed the article without question, the people who jumped to conclusions without knowing me, the people who assumed the worst, those weren't my people anyway. And the people who stuck around, who texted me to ask if I was okay, who said, "I saw the article, but I know there's more to it than that," those were the people worth keeping. My climbing gym friends had my back immediately. "Dude, your family sounds toxic," said Connor, a guy I'd been climbing with for months. "You're better off without them." "Family isn't always blood," added Maya, who'd grown up in foster care and understood chosen family better than anyone. "Sometimes the best family is the one you build yourself." Those words stuck with me. Dr. Kim had been saying the same thing in different ways for months, but hearing it from friends made it real. I could build my own family. A week after the article published, I got an unexpected email. It was from a woman named Catherine Morrison, a family law attorney who specialized in estrangement cases. "Dear Marcus, I read the recent Chronicle article and wanted to reach out. I work with people who are navigating estrangement from toxic family systems, and your story resonated with me. I'm not soliciting you as a client, but I wanted you to know there are resources available if you're interested. Support groups, legal protections, strategies for managing continued harassment." You're not alone, even though I'm sure it feels that way. Best. Catherine Morrison. I stared at that email for a long time. Support groups, other people going through this. I'd thought I was uniquely broken, uniquely unlovable. But if there were enough people dealing with family estrangement that there were support groups and specialized attorneys, maybe I was more normal than I thought. I emailed her back and asked for information. 2 weeks later, I attended my first meeting of an estrangement support group at a community center in the Mission. There were about a dozen people there, ranging in age from early 20s to late 60s. We sat in a circle with terrible coffee and grocery store cookies, and one by one, people shared their stories. There was David, who'd been disowned for being gay. Maria, whose family demanded she financially support all of them because she'd gotten a good job. Robert, whose parents had stolen his identity and ruined his credit, then accused him of abandoning them when he went no contact. Jennifer, whose siblings had convinced their dying mother to change her will at the last minute, cutting Jennifer out entirely. And then there was me. "I'm Marcus," I said when it was my turn. "My uncle left me an inheritance and my family tried to take it. When they couldn't, they sued me. When that didn't work, they launched a smear campaign. I haven't spoken to any of them in over a year." "How are you holding up?" the group facilitator, a kind-faced woman named Dr. Patel, asked. "Some days are better than others. Today's okay." "That's all we can ask for," she said gently. After the meeting, several people came up to talk to me. They shared their own stories of family greed, of being scapegoated, of having their reputations destroyed by the people who were supposed to love them. "It gets easier," Maria told me. "Not easy, but easier. The longer you're away from their chaos, the clearer you can think." I hoped she was right. I started attending the group regularly. It became a lifeline, a place where I didn't have to explain or justify or defend. Everyone there understood. And slowly, I started to feel less alone. My business continued to grow. I hired a part-time assistant to help with administrative work. I rented a small office space so I didn't have to work from home anymore. I raised my rates again. Money wasn't tight anymore. That was still surreal. I could go to the doctor when I felt sick. I could buy good food. I could save for retirement. I could help friends when they needed it. Actually, that last part became important. One of my climbing gym friends, Connor, had a crisis when his roommate bilated on rent and he was facing eviction. "I can lend you the money," I told him. "Marcus, I can't ask you." "You didn't ask, I'm offering. Pay me back when you can, no interest." He teared up. Seriously. He paid me back in 4 months, insisted on adding interest even though I told him not to, and told me I'd saved his life. That felt good, using the money to actually help someone who needed it, who'd been kind to me, who saw me as a person rather than a resource. That's what Uncle Raymond had wanted, I think, for me to be in a position to choose generosity rather than having it demanded of me. Another friend, a designer I'd met at a conference, was struggling to afford software licenses for her startup. "How much do you need?" I asked. "Marcus, I wasn't hinting." "I know, but I'm asking, how much?" "Maybe 2,000, but I'll pay you back." "Consider it an investment. When your business takes off, you can pay it forward to someone else." She cried, "Why are you so nice?" "I'm not nice, I just know what it's like to need help and not get it." These small acts of chosen generosity felt like reclaiming something, like proving that I could be generous on my own terms, with people I chose, without being guilted or manipulated. But my family found out. I don't know how. Maybe someone saw my Facebook posts. I'd reactivated it with heavy privacy settings, or maybe one of the mutual friends reported back. But I got a text from my mother that made my blood boil. "I heard you're lending money to friends, but you wouldn't help your own sister. Your priorities are shameful." I blocked her number. Then came a voicemail from my father. "Marcus, this is your father. I heard you're throwing money around to strangers while your family struggles. I don't know what's happened to you, but I'm disappointed. Call me back so we can discuss this." I deleted it without finishing. Victoria sent an email. "Marcus, I heard you loaned Connor $2,000. You know what I could do with $2,000? I could buy Emma's textbooks for the year. I could fix the dishwasher that's been broken for 6 months. I could buy Sophie the special learning tools her teacher recommended. But I guess your friends matter more than your own blood. I hope you can live with that. I didn't respond, but I did screenshot it and show Dr. Kim. They're monitoring you, she observed, tracking who you help, what you spend money on. That's concerning. Is it illegal? Not necessarily, but it's definitely a violation of boundaries. You might consider tightening your privacy settings even more, or going fully dark on social media. I deactivated Facebook again, this time for good. I also changed my phone number and only gave it to people I trusted. The harassment didn't stop completely, but it slowed. They had fewer ways to reach me. And slowly, over the course of that second year, something shifted. I stopped waiting for them to apologize. I stopped hoping they'd see my side. I stopped imagining some reconciliation where they'd admit they were wrong and welcome me back with open arms. I accepted that they were never going to change. And more importantly, I accepted that I didn't need them to. I had my climbing friends, my support group, my therapist, my assistant at work, my cat, my routines, my own life. It wasn't the family I was born into, but it was a family nonetheless. Dr. Kim called it chosen family, and I liked that. The family I chose, the family that chose me back. The second anniversary of Uncle Raymond's death came and went. I took the day off work and drove down to Monterey. I visited his grave for the first time since the funeral. The headstone was simple: Raymond Chen, 1949-2023, beloved brother and uncle. I sat on the grass next to it and talked to him like he was there. Hey Uncle Raymond, it's me Marcus. I don't know if you can hear me or if this is just me talking to a rock, but I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for the money, yeah, but more than that, thank you for the letter. For telling me I was worth something. I don't know if I ever believed that before. The wind rustled through the nearby trees. Things have been hard, the family is. Well, they're exactly who you said they were. They tried to take everything. They're still mad that they couldn't, but I'm okay. More than okay, actually. I'm building a good life, the kind of life you probably hoped I'd build. I put a small bouquet of flowers on the grave. Wildflowers, the kind he used to grow in his garden, according to Linda. I miss you, isn't that weird? I barely knew you, but I miss you. I miss the idea of you, of someone who saw me and thought I was worth saving.